Lewis Hamilton thought Emma Chun had forgotten him years ago. He was wrong. For 5 years, she'd been his biggest supporter, and he never knew it. When Lewis accidentally discovers her secret fan account with millions of followers, he realizes the woman he lost in 2019 never stopped loving him. But Emma has been hiding more than just her feelings. She's been carrying a devastating secret that explains why she could never move on. Now, with the Brazilian Grand Prix just days away, Lewis has a choice: stay silent or risk everything to win back the love of his life. What he decides to do next will shock the racing world and break the internet forever. The Monaco sun was setting behind the mountains as Lewis Hamilton sat in his penthouse apartment, staring at his phone. The day had been long and frustrating. Preseason testing at Bahrain hadn't gone well, and his publicist had just left after another tense meeting about his move to Ferrari. "You need to be more careful about what you post," Sarah had said, gathering her papers. "The fans are watching everything now. One wrong word, and it's headlines for days." Lewis rubbed his temples. Sometimes he wondered if this was all worth it. The pressure, the constant watching, the way every part of his life became public property. He was 39 years old, and he felt tired in a way that had nothing to do with racing. His phone buzzed with notifications. Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp messages from friends. The usual chaos that followed him everywhere. He almost ignored it all, but something made him open Instagram. Instead, he scrolled through his feed without really seeing it. Photos of other drivers, training, team updates, fan art, the normal stuff. Then something caught his eye. A fan account had posted a detailed breakdown of his lap times from today's testing. But it wasn't just any fan account. The analysis was incredibly detailed, almost professional. They had noticed things about his driving style that even some journalists missed. The account name was at LH44 Forever. Lewis clicked on the profile. The picture showed a sunset over Silverstone Circuit. The bio was simple: still believing in magic, still cheering for 44. His heart stopped. Those words. He knew those words. Emma had said them to him 5 years ago, the night before their relationship ended. She had been lying in his bed in this same apartment, looking out at the Monaco harbor, and she had whispered, "I'll always believe in magic. Lewis, I'll always be cheering for 44." It had to be a coincidence. Lots of fans probably said things like that. But something about the way it was written, the exact words, made his chest feel tight. Lewis clicked on the account's posts. There were hundreds of them, going back years. Every single one of his races was covered. Not just the wins, but the difficult races too. The posts from 2022, when Mercedes was struggling, were especially supportive. One post from Hungary 2022 made him pause. "Watching you fight with that car today showed me why you're the greatest." It's not about the wins. It's about never giving up, even when everything seems impossible. Lewis remembered that race. He had finished third, but it had felt like a victory after months of struggling. The post had been made just hours after the race ended. Someone had been watching, really watching, and they had understood what that race meant to him. He scrolled further back. Silverstone 2021, the race where he had won in front of his home crowd. The post showed a photo of him celebrating with the British flag, but the caption was what made his hands shake. 5 years I've been watching you chase this moment. Seeing you win at home again makes my heart sing. You deserve every bit of this joy." 5 years. The account had been created in March 2019. 1 week after he and Emma had broken up, Lewis's mouth went dry. He clicked on more posts, looking for clues. The writing style was familiar. The way they described his racing lines, the technical knowledge they showed, the emotional way they talked about his struggles and victories. Abu Dhabi, 2021. The race that had broken his heart. The post from that day was long and emotional. "I can't stop crying. What happened to you today was wrong. You drove perfectly. You deserve that championship. I know you're hurting right now, but please don't let this break you. You're stronger than this moment. You're better than what happened today." Lewis remembered that night. He had been destroyed, sitting alone in his hotel room, feeling like his world had ended. Someone had been thinking about him, caring about his pain, writing words of comfort that he had never seen. That he kept scrolling, his heart beating faster. With each post, Interlagos 2021, where he had fought back from last place to win. The post showed a photo of him in the garage before the race, looking defeated and frustrated. Lewis remembered that moment. He had been ready to give up. The caption read, I can see the pain in your eyes in this photo. I can see how much you're hurting. But I also see the fire that's still there. I've never stopped believing in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. Go show them who you are." Lewis stared at the photo. How had they gotten this picture? It was taken in the garage, in a private moment. Only team members and special guests were allowed in there. He clicked on the photo to see when it was posted. It was uploaded during the race weekend, hours before his incredible comeback victory. Someone had been there, in the paddock, watching him, caring about him. His phone slipped from his hands as the truth hit him. This wasn't just a fan account. This was Emma. Emma had been following his career, supporting him, loving him from a distance for 5 years. She had been there, at the races, watching him, cheering for him, and he had never known. Lewis picked up his phone with shaking hands and looked at the account again. There were posts from every single race he had driven since 2019. Not one was missing. Through his championship battle in 2021, through his difficult 2022 season, through his return to winning in 2023, through every high and low of his career. Emma had been there for all of it. He scrolled to the most recent post, from just 3 days ago after the Bahrain test. It was a photo of him walking to his car, looking tired and frustrated. The caption made tears come to his eyes. "I know today was hard. I know the car didn't feel right. I know you're probably doubting yourself right now. But I need you to know that I still see the champion in you. I still believe in the magic. I'm still cheering for 44, and I always will be." Lewis stood up from his couch, pacing around his living room. Emma had never moved on. She had been supporting him, loving him, believing in him for 5 years, and he had been completely unaware that he thought about all the races where he had felt alone, where he had struggled with doubt and pressure. Emma had been there, in the stands, or in the media center, watching him, silently cheering him on. She had seen his victories and his defeats, his joy and his pain, and she had never stopped caring. Lewis looked at the sunset over Monaco, the same view Emma had been looking at when she promised to always believe in magic. She had kept that promise, even after they broke up. Even after he had let her go, his phone buzzed with a new notification. The @LH44 Forever account had posted something new. Lewis opened it with trembling fingers. It was a photo taken from inside the Suzuka paddock during the 2023 Japanese Grand Prix. Lewis remembered that race. He had been struggling with the car setup and had finished 4th, frustrated and disappointed. The photo showed him walking away from his car after the race, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The caption read, "Watching you fight today broke my heart. You deserved so much better. The car let you down, but you never let yourself down. I wish I could tell you how proud I am of you. I wish I could tell you that your effort today meant everything to me. But I can only watch from here and hope. You know that someone still believes in you completely." Lewis stared at the photo, his heart pounding. The angle, the timing, the access required to take this shot. Emma had been there, in the paddock, close enough to see his pain but too far away to comfort him. She had been watching him suffer, and he had never known she was there. Lewis couldn't sleep that night. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. Every few minutes, he would grab his phone and look at the @LH44 Forever account again, hoping he had imagined it all. But the posts were real. The photos were real. Emma's words were real. At 3 in the morning, he gave up trying to sleep. He made coffee and sat at his kitchen table with his laptop, determined to understand what had really been happening for the past 5 years. He started from the beginning. The first post was from March 15th, 2019, 1 week after their breakup. It was a simple photo of the Australian Grand Prix track with the words, "New season, new hope. Still believing in 44." Lewis remembered that race. He had won it, but he had felt empty during the celebration. Emma should have been there with him, but instead, she was gone. He had thought she was moving on with her life, forgetting about him and their relationship, but she hadn't forgotten. She had been watching that. He clicked through months of posts. Every race weekend, there were updates. Not just results, but real analysis of his driving, his strategy, his battles with other drivers. The person writing these posts understood racing at a deep level. The 2019 season posts were careful, almost formal. But as time went on, they became more personal. By 2020, during the COVID pandemic when races were held without fans, the posts showed real emotion. From Hungary 2020, "Racing without crowds feels so lonely." I hope you can feel that there are still people cheering for you, even if we can't be there. You're not alone, even when it seems like you are." Lewis remembered that race. The empty grandstands had been depressing. He had won, but the silence after crossing the finish line had been strange and sad. Someone had understood how that felt that he kept reading. The 2021 season post told the story of his championship battle with Max Verstappen. Each race was covered in detail with analysis that was better than most professional journalists. From Silverstone 2021, "Your home crowd roared so loud when you won today. I was crying in the stands, so proud of you. You needed this victory so much. You could see it in your face when you crossed the line. Pure joy. This is why we fell in love with racing." Lewis paused. "I was crying in the stands." Emma had been there, at Silverstone, watching him win. She had been in the crowd, celebrating his victory, and he had never known. He searched through more posts from 2021. Monza, where he and Max had crashed. The post from that day was emotional. "I saw the crash happen right in front of me. My heart stopped. I was so scared you were hurt. Racing is dangerous, and moments like this remind me why I worry about you constantly. I'm so relieved you're okay." Emma had been at Monza too. She had seen the crash in person, had been terrified for his safety. Lewis felt a strange mix of comfort and sadness. All those races where he had felt alone, Emma had been there, caring about him. The Abu Dhabi 2021 posts were the most emotional. There were 3 posts from that weekend. The first was hopeful. "Tomorrow is the race we've all been waiting for. 8 months of incredible battles have led to this moment. Whatever happens, I'm so proud of how hard you fought this year." The second post was from after the race. "I can't stop crying. What happened to you today was wrong. You drove perfectly. You deserve that championship. I know you're hurting right now, but please don't let this break you. You're stronger than this moment." The third post was from later that night. "I wanted to come find you after the race. I wanted to hold you and tell you that none of this changes who you are, but I stayed away because I thought that was better. Now I'm wondering if I was wrong. I'm wondering if you needed to know that someone still believes in you completely." Lewis's eyes filled with tears. Emma had been there, in Abu Dhabi, watching his heart break. She had wanted to comfort him, but had stayed away. He had been alone in his hotel room that night, destroyed by what had happened. While Emma was somewhere in the same city, crying for him, he kept reading through 2022, the difficult season when Mercedes struggled with their car. The posts from that year were incredibly supportive, encouraging him through every frustrating race. From Monaco 2022, "Watching you fight with that car today was painful. You deserve so much better. But seeing you never give up, seeing you still push even when nothing is working, that's the Lewis I fell in love with. That's the champion you'll always be." Lewis remembered Monaco 2022. He had finished 8th, frustrated and angry. The team had let him down, the car had been terrible, and he had felt like his career was falling apart. But Emma had been watching, seeing his effort, appreciating his fight even when the results weren't there. The post from 2023 showed joy when he started winning again. From Silverstone 2023, "You're back. Watching you win at home again made me so happy. The smile on your face reminded me of the old days. This is what I've been waiting for, to see you happy again." Lewis clicked on the photos from that post. One showed him celebrating with the British flag, but there was another photo that made his heart skip. It was taken from the media center, showing him during the post-race interviews. The angle was perfect, capturing his joy and relief. Emma had been working at that race. She was a journalist now, covering Formula One. She had been there professionally, but she was also there as someone who loved him. Lewis searched Google for Imogen Formula One journalist. The results made his chest tight. She had been covering F1 for years, working for different publications, building a career around the sport they both loved. She had been in the paddock, at the races, doing her job while secretly supporting him. Through her account, he found articles she had written. They were professional, well-researched, and fair. She had interviewed other drivers, written about technical regulations, covered the business side of the sport. But she had never approached him for an interview. She had kept her distance, maintaining her professionalism while loving him from afar. One article from late 2023 caught his attention. It was about driver mental health, published after several drivers had spoken about their struggles with pressure and criticism. Emma had written about the importance of support systems, about how drivers needed people who believed in them even during difficult times. The article ended with a quote that made Lewis's hands shake. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who support us quietly, without expecting anything in return. They celebrate our victories in private and hurt for us when we struggle. This invisible support can be more powerful than any public praise. Lewis closed his laptop and walked to his balcony. The Monaco harbor was quiet in the early morning light. Emma was out there somewhere, probably getting ready for another day of work, another day of covering the sport while secretly loving him. His phone buzzed. A new post from at LH44 Forever. Lewis opened it immediately. It was a photo from yesterday's Ferrari factory visit that Lewis had posted on his official account. Emma had reposted it with the caption, "Seeing you smile like this gives me hope. New team, new energy, new possibilities. I can't wait to see what you achieve next. I'll be watching like always." Lewis stared at the post. Emma was responding to his social media, engaging with his content, but he had never noticed. She had been part of his online world for years, quietly supporting him, and he had been completely unaware that he looked at the timestamp. The post had been made just 10 minutes ago. Emma was awake, thinking about him, supporting him, right now. Lewis went back inside and opened his laptop again. He needed to know more. He needed to understand what Emma's life had been like for the past 5 years. He needed to know where she was now. He found her LinkedIn profile. She was based in Sao Paulo, Brazil, working as a freelance motorsport journalist. She covered South American racing series as well as Formula One. She had built a successful career, but she was still following F1 closely. Lewis looked at her recent work. She had been assigned to cover the upcoming Brazilian Grand Prix. She would be there at Interlagos in 2 weeks. She would be in the paddock, doing her job while he raced. The thought of seeing her again made his heart race. What would he say? What would she say? How do you approach someone who has been loving you in secret for 5 years? Lewis picked up his phone and scrolled through the at LH44 Forever account one more time. 5 years of posts. 5 years of support. 5 years of love that he had never acknowledged. He started typing a direct message to the account, then stopped. What could he say? How do you respond to 5 years of unrequited love? How do you thank someone for caring about you when you didn't even know they were there? Lewis deleted the message and put his phone down. He needed to think. He needed to figure out what to do next. But first, he needed to understand why Emma had never told him. Why had she chosen to love him from a distance instead of trying to reconnect? What had kept her away for 5 years? Lewis looked at his phone again. There was something he needed to check. Something that might explain everything. He opened his Instagram settings and looked at his message requests. The folder where messages from non-followers went, the folder he rarely checked. His heart stopped. There were hundreds of messages there, filtered by Instagram's system. Messages that had never reached him. Messages that he had never seen. Lewis started scrolling through them, looking for anything from Emma or from the at LH44 Forever account. His hands were shaking as he searched, and then he found it. A message from December 2021, right after Abu Dhabi. The preview showed just the first few words. "I know you're hurting. I need you to know that what happened doesn't define you. There's something I should have told you before." Lewis clicked on it with trembling fingers. Emma had tried to reach him. She had tried to tell him something important, but the message had been filtered, hidden away where he would never see it. What had she wanted to tell him? What had been so important that she had broken her silence to try to reach him? Lewis opened the message, his heart pounding. Whatever Emma had wanted to say 2.5 years ago, he was about to find out. The message was long, much longer than the preview had shown. Lewis sat down heavily in his chair as he began to read. "Lewis, I know you'll probably never see this, but I need you to know that what happened today doesn't define you. You're still the champion I fell in love with. You drove perfectly today. That championship was yours, and everyone knows it that I've been watching you for almost 3 years now, following every race, every interview, every moment of your career. I know that sounds crazy. I know you probably think I should have moved on by now, but I can't. I've tried, but I can't stop caring about you. There's something I should have told you before we broke up, but I was scared. I was scared of how much I loved you, scared of the spotlight, scared of not being enough for your world. But watching you today, seeing your pain when they took that championship away from you, I can't stay silent anymore that I never stopped loving you, Lewis. Not for a single day in these 3 years. Every race, every victory, every setback. I've been there. cheering for you from the shadows. I know it's too late now. I know you've probably moved on. I know I gave up my right to comfort you when I walked away, but I needed you to know that someone still believes in you completely. Someone still sees the magic in what you do. Someone still thinks you're the greatest driver who ever lived. Not because of championships or trophies, but because of who you are as a person. That I'm sorry I was too weak to give you the love you deserved when we were together. I'm sorry I let fear keep us apart. I'm sorry I never told you the real reason I left. You deserve to be loved the way you love others, completely, without fear, without holding back. I hope someday you find someone brave enough to give you that. You deserve all the happiness in the world. That I'll keep cheering for you, like I always have. From a distance, but with all my heart. That I love you. I never stopped. I never will. Emma. Louis stared at the screen, reading the message again and again. His hands were shaking so hard, he could barely hold his phone. Emma had written this after Abu Dhabi 2021, after the most painful moment of his career. She had tried to reach him, tried to comfort him, but the message had never reached him. She had said there was something she should have told him before they broke up. A real reason she had left. What could that have been? What had Emma been hiding from him? Louis stood up and paced around his living room. For 2.5 years, Emma had thought he had ignored her message. She had poured her heart out to him, told him she still loved him, and when he never responded, she must have thought he didn't care, but he had never seen it. Instagram's filters had kept her words away from him. She had been loving him, supporting him, believing in him, and when she finally found the courage to tell him, the technology had failed them both. Louis looked at the timestamp on the message. It was sent at 2:47 a.m. Monaco time on December 13th, 2021, just hours after the race ended. Emma had been awake, probably crying, watching the replays of what had happened to him. She had been in pain for him, and she had tried to reach out. He scrolled down to see if there were more messages from her. There was one more, sent 3 days later. I understand why you didn't reply. I shouldn't have reached out. I'll go back to supporting you quietly. I'm sorry for overstepping. Take care of yourself, Louis. You'll always be my champion. Louis felt like his chest was being crushed. Emma had thought he was ignoring her. She had opened her heart to him, and when he didn't respond, she had assumed he didn't want to hear from her. She had gone back to loving him in silence, thinking he had rejected her. For 2.5 years, she had been carrying that pain. For 2.5 years, she had thought he didn't care about her feelings. She had kept supporting him through at LH44 forever, but she must have thought he would never love her back. Louis picked up his laptop and started typing frantically. He needed to know more about Emma's life. He needed to understand what she had been doing, where she was living, how she had been surviving all these years of one-sided love. He found more of her articles online. She had been working hard, building her career as a motorsport journalist. She covered Formula One, but also local Brazilian racing series. She had interviewed drivers, written technical analyses, covered the business side of racing. She was good at her job, respected in the industry, but in all her professional work, she had never written about Louis directly. She had covered his races, mentioned his performances in broader articles about championships and seasons, but she had never done a personal interview with him or written a feature story about him. She had kept her professional distance, even while loving him privately. Louis found her social media profiles. Her personal Instagram was private, but her professional Twitter account showed her work. She posted about race weekends, shared her articles, engaged with other journalists and drivers. But she never posted anything personal about Louis. She never shared photos from the @LH44 Forever account. She kept her two worlds completely separate. How had she managed that? How had she been able to love him so deeply while maintaining such perfect professionalism? How strong did someone have to be to support their ex-boyfriend's career for years without ever letting it affect their work? Louis looked at her recent posts. 2 weeks ago, she had tweeted about the upcoming Brazilian Grand Prix. Looking forward to covering the Sao Paulo GP. Always special to have F1 racing in Brazil. The energy at Interlagos is unlike anywhere else. She would be there. In 2 weeks, Emma would be at Interlagos, working as a journalist, probably watching him from the media center like she had been doing for years. She would be close enough to touch, but she would maintain her distance like she always did. Louis couldn't let that happen. He couldn't let her go on thinking he had ignored her message, thinking he didn't care about her feelings. He couldn't let her keep loving him from the shadows when he wanted nothing more than to love her back. But how could he approach her? How could he tell her that he had found her secret account, read her hidden message, discovered her years of quiet support? How could he explain that he had been completely unaware of her love while she had been giving it so freely? Louis looked at his phone again. He could send a message to the @LH44Forever account. He could try to reach her through Instagram. But what would he say? How do you start a conversation after 5 years of separation and misunderstanding? He started typing several times, then deleted the words. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt big enough for what he was feeling. Louis walked back to his balcony and looked out at Monaco. Somewhere in Sao Paulo, Emma was probably getting ready for bed. It was late evening in Brazil. She might be scrolling through F1 News, preparing for another day of work, continuing her life that revolved around loving him from a distance. He had to see her. He had to talk to her face to face. But he couldn't just show up in Brazil and surprise her. That would be too much, too overwhelming. He needed a plan that would bring them together naturally, professionally, without pressure. Louis pulled out his phone and called his team manager. It was early morning in Monaco, but his manager was always available for important calls. Louis, is everything okay? I need a favor, Louis said. It's about the Brazilian Grand Prix. I need you to arrange something for me. What kind of something? Louis took a deep breath. I need you to make sure a specific journalist is assigned to the post-race press conference. Her name is Emma Chun. She's freelance, covers F1 for various publications. I need her to be there. Is this about an interview? We can arrange that easily. No, Louis said. It's not about an interview. It's about something much more important. Can you make it happen without her knowing I requested it? There was a pause. Louis, what's going on? I can't explain it all right now, but this is the most important thing I've ever asked you to do. Please, just make sure Emma Chun is in that press conference room after the race. Okay, I'll make some calls. But Louis, yeah, whatever this is about, be careful. The media will be watching everything. Louis looked at his phone, at Emma's message still open on the screen. I know, but some things are more important than being careful. After he hung up, Louis sat quietly in his apartment. In 2 weeks, he would see Emma again. He would look into her eyes for the first time in 5 years. She would probably be shocked, maybe even upset that he had discovered her secret, but he couldn't wait any longer. He couldn't let her keep thinking he didn't care. He couldn't let her go on loving him from the shadows when he wanted to love her in the light. Louis looked at Emma's message one more time, then closed his phone. In 2 weeks, everything would change. In 2 weeks, he would finally have the chance to tell Emma Chun that he had received her message, even if it was 2.5 years too late. And he would tell her that he had never stopped loving her either. The next few days passed in a blur. Louis couldn't focus on training, couldn't concentrate during team meetings about the Ferrari move, couldn't think about anything except Emma and the Brazilian Grand Prix. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Every time he looked at his phone, he wanted to message the @LH44Forever account, but he forced himself to wait. This had to be done right. On Thursday morning, his best friend Miles called from London. Miles had been the one person who knew how much Louis had struggled after the breakup with Emma. He had been there through the worst nights, when Louis couldn't sleep and couldn't stop thinking about what he had lost. You sound different, Miles said after they had talked for a few minutes. What's going on? Louis hesitated. He hadn't told anyone about discovering Emma's account. The secret felt too big, too important to share. But he needed advice, and Miles was the only person who would understand. I found Emma, Louis said quietly. What do you mean you found her? She wasn't lost. I mean, I found out she's been supporting me for years, since we broke up. Louis told Miles everything. About the @LH44Forever account, about the years of posts, about the hidden message, about Emma's career as a motorsport journalist. Miles listened without interrupting, which Louis knew meant he was shocked. Bloody hell, Miles said when Louis finished. She's been at the races? Every single one since 2019. She's been watching me, Miles. She's been there when I won, when I lost, when I struggled. And I never knew. Why didn't she tell you? Why didn't she just come up to you? Louis had been wondering the same thing. I think she was protecting me. Or protecting herself. Maybe both. There was a long pause. Then Miles said something that surprised Louis. She called me. What? Emma called me. About 6 months ago. She said she was working on an article about driver support systems, and she wanted to ask me some questions about friendship in F1. But now that you're telling me this, what did she ask you? She asked about you, about how you were doing, if you seemed happy, if you had found someone special. She said it was research, but I could tell she really wanted to know. I told her you were doing well, but that you seemed lonely sometimes. Lewis felt his chest tighten. What else did you tell her? I told her that you still kept a photo of her in your Monaco apartment. The one from Silverstone 2018, when you won and she was there celebrating with you. I told her you had never really moved on, even though you tried to date other people. Lewis did keep that photo. It was in a drawer in his bedroom, but he looked at it sometimes when he couldn't sleep. Emma looked so happy in it, so proud of him. It was taken before everything got complicated, before the pressure of his career and her insecurities pulled them apart. She started crying on the phone. Miles continued. She tried to hide it, but I could tell. She said she had to go, and she never published any article about driver support systems. She was checking on me, Lewis said, understanding. She wanted to know if I was okay. Lewis, she never stopped loving you. I could hear it in her voice, but she also sounded scared, like she was afraid of getting too close. Lewis knew that. Fear. He had felt it too, even during their relationship. The pressure of his career, the media attention, the way everything in his life became public, it had been overwhelming for both of them. Emma had always worried she wasn't strong enough for his world. I need to see her, Lewis said. I arranged for her to be at the Brazilian Grand Prix press conference, but I don't know what to say to her. Be honest, Miles said. Tell her what you told me. Tell her you found her account. You read her message. You know she's been supporting you. Tell her how you feel. What if she doesn't want to see me? What if she's built a new life and I'm just disrupting it? Then you'll know. But Lewis, you can't spend the rest of your life wondering what might have happened. You can't let her keep thinking you don't care about her. After they hung up, Lewis felt more determined, but also more nervous. In 1 week, he would see Emma. Again. In 1 week, everything would change. That he spent the weekend reading more of her articles, trying to understand the person she had become. Her writing was smart and passionate. She clearly loved motorsport, understood the technical aspects, and wrote with genuine emotion about the sport and its drivers. In one article about young drivers coming into F1, she wrote, "The best drivers are the ones who race with their hearts as much as their heads. They risk everything because they believe in something bigger than themselves. That kind of courage is rare and beautiful." Lewis wondered if she was thinking about him when she wrote those words. On Monday, his team manager called with an update. Emma Chun is confirmed for the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend. She's been assigned to cover qualifying and the race for 2 different publications, and she's on the list for the post-race press conference. Does she know I requested her? No. As far as she knows, it's just a normal assignment. Lewis, are you sure about this? If something goes wrong, if this becomes a media circus, I'm sure, Lewis said. This is something I have to do. But even as he said it, Lewis felt scared. What if Emma was angry that he had discovered her secret? What if she felt exposed, violated? What if she didn't want their private story to become public? Lewis looked at his Ferrari gear laid out for the next day's simulator session. In less than 2 months, he would be starting a new chapter of his career. But first, he needed to finish the old chapter. He needed to have the conversation with Emma that they should have had 5 years ago. He picked up his phone and looked at the @LH44Forever account one more time. The latest post was from yesterday, about his simulator work. Seeing you prepare for the next chapter makes me excited for what's coming. New team, new dreams, same champion heart. I'll be cheering for you every step of the way. Emma was still there, still supporting him, still believing in him. In 6 days, he would look into her eyes for the first time since 2019. In 6 days, he would finally be able to tell her that her love hadn't been one-sided, that her support had meant everything to him, even when he didn't know it existed. Lewis closed his phone and tried to imagine what he would say to her. How do you thank someone for 5 years of secret love? How do you apologize for 5 years of accidental silence? How do you tell someone that finding out they never stopped caring about you was the most beautiful discovery of your life? He didn't have all the answers yet, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let Emma Chun slip away from him again. Not this time. Not when he finally understood how much she meant to him. The Brazilian Grand Prix was 6 days away. 6 days. Until he could finally tell Emma that he had received her message, even if it was too late. 6 days until he could tell her that he loved her. 2.6 days until everything changed. Imogen stepped off the plane at Sao Paulo Guarulhos International Airport on Thursday morning, her camera bag heavy on her shoulder. The November air was warm and humid, filled with the energy that always surrounded a Brazilian Grand Prix weekend. She loved coming home for this race. The passion of the Brazilian fans, the history of Interlagos, the way the whole country celebrated Formula One. It never failed to make her heart race, but this weekend felt different. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something important was about to happen. She took the train to the city center, then caught a taxi to her small apartment in Vila Madalena. The walls were covered with her motorsport photography, shots from races around the world, moments of triumph and defeat captured through her lens. In the corner sat her computer, where she wrote the articles that had built her reputation as one of Brazil's most respected F1 journalists. Emma set down her bags and immediately opened her laptop. She had work to do before heading to Interlagos. Tomorrow, 2 different publications had assigned her to cover the weekend, which meant double the interviews, double the articles, double the pressure. She opened the @LH44 Forever Instagram account and scrolled through the comments on her latest post. Thousands of fans from around the world shared her love for Lewis Hamilton. They didn't know who she really was, but they understood her passion. In a way, the account had connected her to a community of people who loved the sport as much as she did. Emma started typing a new post. Sao Paulo GP weekend begins tomorrow. The energy here is already incredible. Brazilian fans know how to celebrate racing like nowhere else. Ready for an amazing weekend at Interlagos. She posted it, then closed the account. Time to focus on her professional work. The next morning, Emma arrived at Interlagos early for the media briefing. The circuit was buzzing with activity, mechanics preparing cars, journalists setting up equipment, drivers doing track walks. She had been coming here for 5 years now, but it still gave her chills to walk through the paddock. Emma checked her credentials and headed to the media center. Her assignments for the weekend were clear: qualifying coverage for Motorsport Magazine, race coverage for F1 Brazil, and she had been selected for the post-race press conference pool. It was a good assignment, the kind that showed editors trusted her work. She set up her workspace and checked the driver's schedule. Lewis Hamilton was doing media interviews this afternoon. Emma would be in the same building as him, maybe even the same room. The thought made her nervous in a way that had nothing to do with journalism. During the driver's briefing, Emma sat in the back row of the media room with her camera. She watched as all 20 drivers filed in, but her eyes found Lewis immediately. He looked good, relaxed, confident, ready for the challenge ahead. At 39, he was still one of the fastest drivers on the grid. Lewis took his seat at the front table next to Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. As the FIA official began speaking, Emma raised her camera and took a few shots. Through her lens, she could see Lewis more clearly. He was listening intently, occasionally nodding or asking questions. He looked professional, focused, but Emma noticed something else. Several times during the briefing, Lewis's eyes scanned the media room. Emma told herself he was just looking at the journalists, maybe recognizing familiar faces. But each time his gaze passed over her section, her heart skipped a beat. After the briefing, Emma headed to the paddock to gather quotes from team principals and engineers. The Brazilian fans were already arriving, wearing yellow jerseys and singing songs. Their energy was infectious, reminding Emma why she loved this sport so much. During free practice, Emma watched from the media center, timing sectors and taking notes. Lewis looked fast in the Mercedes, finding a good rhythm on the challenging Interlagos circuit. She found herself holding her breath during his fastest laps, willing him to find that extra tenth of a second. Without thinking, Emma pulled out her phone and opened the @LH44 Forever account. She took a photo of the timing screen showing Lewis's best lap time and posted it with the caption, "Looking strong in practice. The car seems to be working well here. Hoping for a good qualifying tomorrow." She posted it, then immediately felt strange about it. Here she was, sitting in the media center as a professional journalist, while secretly running a fan account for the man she was supposed to be covering objectively. The double life she had been living for 5 years suddenly felt overwhelming. Saturday. Qualifying was intense. Lewis secured third place on the grid, just behind the 2 Red Bulls. Emma watched from the media balcony. cheering silently as he crossed the line. She took dozens of photos, knowing that some would be for her articles and others would end up on the fan account. That evening, Emma sat in her hotel room, writing her qualifying report. She tried to keep her language professional and neutral, but her heart kept creeping into her words. She wrote about Lewis's masterful lap, his brilliant sector times, his inspiring fight for pole position. She had to rewrite several paragraphs to sound more objective. After filing her articles, Emma looked at her phone. The @LH44Forever account had gained 500 new followers just today, probably Brazilian fans discovering it during the race weekend. She posted a photo from qualifying with the caption, "P3 for tomorrow's race." The car looked planted and fast, ready for an amazing race day at Interlagos. Emma closed her laptop and tried to sleep, but her mind was racing. Tomorrow was race day. Tomorrow, Lewis would be fighting for victory while she watched from the media center. Tomorrow, she would be in the post-race press conference, maybe even asking him a question. The thought of speaking directly to Lewis, of looking into his eyes while asking a professional question, made her stomach flutter with nerves. She had managed to avoid direct contact with him for 5 years. Tomorrow, that might not be possible. Emma stared at the ceiling of her hotel room, listening to the sounds of São Paulo outside her window. Somewhere in this same city, Lewis was probably preparing for the race, reviewing data and strategy with his engineers. He had no idea that the woman who had been supporting him through at LH44Forever was less than 10 kilometers away. Race morning arrived with perfect weather, sunny and warm, ideal conditions for racing. Emma arrived at the circuit early, wanting to soak in the atmosphere before the chaos began. The grandstands were already filling with fans wearing yellow, the Brazilian flag painted on their faces. Emma set up her equipment in the media center and checked her cameras. She had a good view of the start-finish straight and the main grandstand. The energy in the air was electric. Everyone could feel that this was going to be a special race. As the cars lined up on the grid, Emma felt her heart racing. Lewis looked focused in his cockpit, going through his pre-race routine. Emma raised her camera and took a photo of him adjusting his steering wheel, the concentration clear on his face. The race began, and Emma found herself caught between her professional duties and her personal emotions. She took photos, made notes, timed sectors, all the things a motorsport journalist should do. But she also found herself gripping her camera tighter during wheel-to-wheel battles, holding her breath when Lewis attempted overtakes. Lewis drove brilliantly, fighting his way up from third to challenge for the lead. On lap 45, he made a stunning move around the outside of turn 1 to take second place. Emma jumped out of her seat, then quickly sat back down, hoping no one had noticed her. Unprofessional reaction. With 10 laps to go, Lewis was closing on the leader. Emma could barely concentrate on her note-taking. Every corner, every braking zone, every gear change felt crucial. She was no longer a journalist covering a race. She was a woman watching the man she loved fight for victory but on the final lap. Lewis made his move. He pulled alongside the leader coming out of the last corner, using the slipstream to perfection. They crossed the finish line side by side, so close that Emma couldn't tell who had won. The timing screen flashed. Lewis Hamilton, P2, 0.027 seconds behind the winner. Emma felt tears in her eyes. Lewis had driven the race of his life, fighting with everything he had. Second place felt like a victory after such an incredible performance. She watched as he climbed out of his car, exhausted but smiling, acknowledging the cheering Brazilian crowd. As Lewis celebrated with his team, Emma realized something that made her stomach flutter with nerves. In 30 minutes, she would be sitting in the post-race press conference room. Lewis would be there, answering questions from journalists, including her. For the first time in 5 years, Emma Chun and Lewis Hamilton would be in the same room, looking at each other, speaking to each other. Emma gathered her equipment with shaking hands, knowing that everything was about to change. The press conference room at Interlagos was packed with journalists from around the world. Emma found a seat in the third row, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. She checked her recording equipment twice, trying to calm her nerves by focusing on the technical details of her job. The podium finishers filed in, the race winner looking tired but happy, Charles Leclerc in third place smiling at the journalists. And then Lewis. Emma's breath caught in her throat as he walked into the room, still wearing his racing suit, his hair damp with sweat from the helmet. Lewis looked around the room as he took his seat at the center microphone. His eyes swept across the journalists, and for just a moment, his gaze landed on Emma. She felt frozen, unable to look away. Did he recognize her? It had been 5 years. She looked different now, older, more professional, her hair longer than it used to be, but Lewis's expression didn't change. He looked at her for just a second, then continued scanning the room. Emma told herself she was imagining things. He probably looked at dozens of journalists the same way. The FIA moderator began the press conference with questions about the race. Lewis answered professionally, talking about his strategy, his car's performance, his battle for the lead. Emma tried to focus on his words, taking notes like the professional journalist she was supposed to be. The car felt really good today, Lewis was saying. The team did an amazing job with the setup. We almost had the win there at the end. Sometimes you drive your heart out and come up just short, but that's racing. Other journalists asked about his upcoming move to Ferrari, about his thoughts on next season, about retirement plans. Lewis answered everything with his usual charm and intelligence. Emma found herself getting lost in his voice, remembering late nights when they used to talk for hours about racing, about dreams, about everything. 20 minutes into the press conference, the moderator called on Emma. Question from Emma Chun, F1 Brazil. Emma's hands shook as she stood up with her recorder. Every eye in the room was on her, but the only ones that mattered were Lewis's. He was looking directly at her now, waiting for her question. Lewis, Emma began, her voice barely steady. Your drive today showed incredible heart and determination. You fought for every position, never gave up even when the win seemed impossible. What keeps you motivated to push so hard after all these years in the sport? It was a safe, professional question, the kind any journalist might ask. But as Emma spoke, she watched Lewis's face carefully. Something changed in his expression. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was really seeing her for the first time. Lewis was quiet for a moment, longer than usual for him. When he finally spoke, his voice was different somehow. Softer, more personal. That's a great question, Emma, he said, and hearing him say her name made her knees weak. You know, people often ask me about motivation, about what drives me to keep racing at this level. And the truth is, it's not just about winning championships or setting records. Lewis paused, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. Sometimes the greatest motivation comes from knowing that someone believes in you. Someone who sees your effort even when you don't win. Someone who understands that the fight itself matters as much as the result. Emma felt her heart racing. There was something in the way Lewis was speaking, something that felt like he was talking directly to her and not to the room full of journalists. I've learned that some of the most important support doesn't come from the loudest voices, Lewis continued. Sometimes it comes from people who believe in you quietly, consistently, without expecting anything in return. That kind of faith in someone, it can carry you through the hardest moments. The room was completely silent. Other journalists were scribbling notes, but Emma couldn't move. Lewis was still looking at her, and she had the strangest feeling that every word he was saying was meant for her. Racing is about more than just being fast, Lewis said. It's about heart. It's about believing in something bigger than yourself. And sometimes, when you think you're racing alone, you discover that you've had support all along. Support from places you never expected. Emma's hands were shaking so hard, she almost dropped her recorder. Was Lewis talking about her? About the @LH44 Forever account? It was impossible. There was no way he could know. But then Lewis did something that made Emma's world stop spinning. He looked directly into her eyes and said, "Thank you for that question, Emma. And thank you for believing that heart and determination matter. That means more to me than you might realize." Emma sat down heavily, her mind racing. The moderator called on another journalist, but Emma couldn't focus on anything except Lewis's words. The way he had looked at her, the way he had emphasized her name, the way he had talked about quiet support and unexpected faith. Did he know? Could he possibly know about the 5 years of secret posts, the messages she thought he had ignored, the love she had been carrying in silence? The press conference continued around her, but Emma felt like she was in a bubble. Every few minutes, she would glance up to find Lewis looking in her direction, not at other journalists, at her. When the final question was asked, Emma gathered her equipment with numb fingers. The journalists began filing out of the room, but Emma moved slowly, still trying to process what had just happened. As she reached the door, she heard her name. Emma. She turned around. Lewis was standing by the press conference table, having just finished talking to an FIA official. Most of the other journalists had already left. The room was nearly empty. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" Lewis asked. Emma's mouth went dry. "Of course." Lewis walked toward her, and Emma noticed that his hands seemed to be shaking slightly too. When he reached her, he was close enough that she could smell his racing suit, could see the exhaustion in his eyes from the intense race. "I wanted to thank you for your question," Lewis said quietly. "It was very insightful." "It was just a standard question," Emma managed to say. "About motivation." Lewis smiled, and it was the same smile she remembered from 5 years ago. Gentle, knowing, a little sad. "Was it?" he asked softly. "Because it felt like more than that to me." Emma stared at him, her heart pounding. "Lewis, I know about it. LH44 forever," Lewis said quietly. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. She actually took a step backward, her eyes wide with shock. "I know about the account," Lewis continued, his voice gentle but urgent. "I know about the posts, the photos, the support. I know you've been there for every race. I know you never stopped caring." Emma felt tears starting in her eyes. "How long have you known?" "A week," Lewis said. "I found the account by accident and realized it was you." "Emma, I read your message from Abu Dhabi 2021, the one you sent to my Instagram." Emma's hands flew to her mouth. "You never replied. I thought you didn't want to hear from me." "I never saw it," Lewis said, his voice breaking slightly. "Instagram filtered it out. I never got your message until last week." "Emma, I had no idea you were trying to reach me. I had no idea that you never stopped loving you," Emma whispered, finishing his sentence. Lewis stepped closer to her. "I never stopped either. Emma, I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day in 5 years." The press conference room was empty now except for the two of them. Emma looked around, suddenly aware that they were having the most important conversation of their lives in a place where anyone could walk in. "Lewis, we can't do this here," she said. "If someone sees us, if the media finds out, I don't care," Lewis said firmly. "I've spent 5 years caring too much about what people think. I've spent 5 years letting fear keep us apart. I'm not doing that anymore." He reached for her hands, and Emma didn't pull away. "I want to tell you something," Lewis said, his voice strong and clear. "And I want everyone to know it. I want the whole world to know that I've been blind for 5 years. That the most incredible woman I've ever known has been supporting me, believing in me, loving me from a distance, and I was too stupid to see it." "Lewis," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face now. "No, let me finish," Lewis said. "You gave up opportunities to protect my career. You loved me quietly because you thought that's what I needed. You've been my guardian angel for 5 years, and I want everyone to know it." Lewis looked around the press conference room, at the cameras that were still recording, at the microphones that were still active. "I love you, Emma Chun," he said loudly, his voice carrying clearly through the room. "I love you for every post, every photo, every word of support. I love you for seeing the best in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. I love you for never giving up on us, even when I gave up on us." Emma stared at him in shock. "Lewis, the cameras, let them record," Lewis said, pulling her closer. "Let the whole world know that Lewis Hamilton is hopelessly, completely, eternally in love with Emma Chun. Let them know that she's been my inspiration for 5 years, even when I didn't know it." Emma looked around the room, seeing the red lights on several cameras, knowing that Lewis's words were being recorded, knowing that in minutes this would be spreading across social media and news outlets worldwide. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "Once this gets out, there's no taking it back." Lewis cupped her face in his hands, looking into her eyes with an intensity that took her breath away. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," he said. "I love you, Emma, and I want the world to know it." Emma stared at Lewis, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Around them, the press conference room felt like it was spinning. The red lights on the cameras seemed to glow brighter, reminding her that every word, every moment was being recorded. "Lewis," she whispered, "do you understand what you just did?" But before he could answer, the door to the press conference room burst open. Three FIA officials rushed in, looking panicked. Behind them came Lewis's press officer, Sarah, her face pale with shock. "Lewis," Sarah called out. "We need to talk. Now." But Lewis didn't move. He kept his hands on Emma's face, his eyes locked on hers. "Answer me first," he said softly. "Tell me how you feel. Tell me I haven't been imagining this for 5 years." Emma looked around the room. The officials were talking frantically to each other. She could hear Sarah on her phone, probably calling Lewis's management team. The cameras were still recording. In a few minutes, this moment would be on social media. In an hour, it would be headlines around the world. Lewis Hamilton declares love for mystery journalist. F1 champion's shocking confession breaks the internet. Who is Emma Chun? Emma realized that her quiet life was about to end. Her professional reputation, her carefully maintained distance from Lewis's world, her privacy, all of it was about to disappear. But looking into Lewis's eyes, seeing the hope and fear and love there, Emma realized she didn't care. "I love you, too," she said, loud enough for the microphones to pick up. "I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day." Lewis's face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. Emma could feel his heart beating as fast as hers. "I'm sorry," Lewis whispered into her hair. "I'm sorry you had to wait so long. I'm sorry I never saw your message. I'm sorry. You thought I didn't care." "Lewis, we need to go," Sarah said urgently, reaching them. "The footage is already going viral. We need to get you out of here before more media arrives." But Lewis shook his head. "No, I'm not running away anymore. I'm not hiding anymore." He turned to face the cameras, keeping one arm around Emma. "Yes, I'm Lewis Hamilton, and yes, I'm in love with Emma Chun. She's been supporting my career for 5 years through a fan account called @LH44 Forever. She's the most incredible woman I know, and I've been an idiot for not seeing it sooner." Emma felt dizzy. This was really happening. Lewis was declaring their love story to the world, live on camera, without any preparation or media strategy. "Lewis," one of the FIA officials said, "this is highly irregular. We need to end this press conference immediately." "The press conference is over," Lewis said firmly. "This is my personal life, and I can talk about it wherever I want." Sarah stepped forward, her phone still buzzing with calls. "Lewis, your management team is having a heart attack. The Ferrari team is confused. We need damage control." "There's no damage to control," Lewis said. "I'm in love with an amazing woman who happens to be a motorsport journalist. That's not a scandal. That's the best thing that's ever happened to me." Emma looked around the room, seeing the chaos they had created. Officials were arguing about protocol. Journalists were trying to get back into the room after hearing about the commotion. Camera operators were checking their equipment to make sure they had captured everything. "Emma," Sarah said, turning to her, "do you have a statement? The media is going to want to know your side of the story." Emma looked at Lewis, then at the cameras, then at all the people staring at her. A week ago, she was just a freelance journalist living quietly in Sao Paulo. Now she was about to become one of the most famous women in motorsport. "Yes," Emma said, stepping closer to the microphones. "I have something to say." The room went silent. Even the officials stopped arguing to listen. "My name is Emma Chun," she began, her voice shaking but growing stronger. "I've been a motorsport journalist for 5 years. I've covered Formula One, Brazilian Racing Series, and other international events. I try to be professional and objective in my work." She paused, looking at Lewis, who nodded encouragingly. "But I also run a fan account called @LH44 Forever," Emma continued. "For 5 years, I've been posting about Lewis Hamilton's career. Not because I'm just a fan, but because I'm in love with him. Because I've been in love with him since before we broke up in 2019. The room erupted. Camera flashes went off like lightning. Emma could hear people talking excitedly outside the door. "I never approached Lewis at races because I wanted to protect both our professional reputations," Emma said, speaking louder now. "I thought loving him from a distance was the right thing to do. I thought it was what he needed." Emma turned to look at Lewis directly. "But I was wrong. I was scared. I was scared of not being enough for his world, scared of the attention, scared of getting hurt again." Lewis reached for her hand. "You were always enough," he said softly. Emma squeezed his hand and turned back to the cameras. "Lewis Hamilton is the most incredible man I know. Not because he's a champion driver, but because of who he is as a person. He's kind, passionate, intelligent, and he cares about making the world better. I've been proud to support him, even if he didn't know it. She took a deep breath. And now the whole world knows our story. It's not the way I imagined this happening, but I'm not sorry. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of being afraid. Emma looked directly into the main camera. Yes, I love Lewis Hamilton. Yes, I've been supporting him secretly for 5 years. And yes, I'm ready for whatever comes next. The room exploded with noise. Officials were shouting about protocol violations. Sarah was frantically answering phone calls. Journalists outside were trying to push into the room, but Lewis only had eyes for Emma. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. "Once this gets out, everything changes. Your life, your career, your privacy, it all changes." Emma smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "I've been waiting 5 years to stop hiding who I really am. I'm ready for the change." Lewis pulled her close and kissed her forehead. "Then let's face it together." Sarah approached them, looking overwhelmed. "We need to get you both out of here. There are already reporters gathering outside. Social media is going crazy. #LewisEmma is trending worldwide." Emma laughed, despite everything. "It's trending already? 3 million tweets in the last 10 minutes, Sarah said, checking her phone. "This is the biggest F1 story of the year. Maybe the decade." Lewis grinned. "Good. Let everyone know that Lewis Hamilton has found the love of his life." As they prepared to leave the press conference room, Emma realized that her phone had been buzzing constantly. She pulled it out to see hundreds of notifications from the @LH44Forever account. Followers were pouring in by the thousands. Comments were flooding in from around the world. "I can't believe this is real. 5 years of secret love. This is the most romantic story ever. Emma, you're living every F1 fan's dream." Emma showed Lewis her phone. "Look at this. People are calling it the most romantic story in F1 history." Lewis laughed. "They don't know the half of it yet." "What do you mean?" Lewis looked at her seriously. "Emma, there's still so much we need to talk about. 5 years of separation, 5 years of misunderstanding. The real conversation is just beginning." Emma nodded. He was right. They had declared their love to the world, but they still needed to figure out how to be together, how to rebuild what they had lost, how to create something new. "Are you ready for that conversation?" Emma asked. Lewis took her hand. "I've been ready for 5 years." As they walked toward the door, leaving behind the chaos of cameras and officials and media frenzy, Emma felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in 5 years, she wasn't hiding. For the first time in 5 years, Lewis knew how she felt. For the first time in 5 years, they were walking in the same direction. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Emma and Lewis made it halfway down the corridor before the real chaos began. The sound hit them first. Dozens of voices shouting questions, camera shutters clicking rapidly, phones ringing constantly. Through the windows, Emma could see news vans pulling into the Interlagos parking lot. "Lewis, Emma, over here. How long have you been together? Emma, what's it like being Lewis's secret girlfriend? Is this why you moved to Brazil?" Sarah was walking ahead of them, her phone pressed to her ear, trying to coordinate their escape. But Lewis stopped walking. "What are you doing?" Emma asked nervously. "I'm tired of running," Lewis said. He turned toward the crowd of journalists gathered at the end of the hallway. "They want a statement? Let's give them one." Emma's stomach dropped. "Lewis, we don't have to do this now. We could wait, get advice from your team, figure out what to say." Lewis looked at her seriously. "Emma, in about 2 hours, every major news outlet in the world is going to be trying to tell our story. Don't you think we should tell it ourselves?" Emma looked at the crowd of reporters, then back at Lewis. He was right. In a few hours, journalists who didn't know them would be speculating about their relationship, making up details, creating narratives that might not be true. "Okay," Emma said, taking a deep breath. "But we tell the truth. All of it." Lewis squeezed her hand. "All of it." They walked toward the crowd together. The noise level increased as the reporters realized they were approaching. Sarah looked panicked, but she quickly moved to organize an impromptu press conference in the corridor. "Everyone back up," Sarah shouted. "Give them space. One question at a time." Lewis and Emma stood together, his arm around her waist. Emma had never felt so exposed in her life, but Lewis's presence beside her gave her strength. "I'll start," Lewis said, his voice carrying clearly down the hallway. "I know you all have questions about what just happened in the press conference room, Emma, and I want to set the record straight." A journalist from Sky Sports raised her hand. "Lewis, how long have you and Emma been in a relationship?" "We're not in a relationship," Lewis said, and Emma felt her heart sink for a moment. "We were in a relationship 5 years ago. We broke up in March 2019. What I discovered last week is that Emma never moved on." He turned to look at Emma. "She's been supporting my career for 5 years through a fan account called at LH44 Forever. She's been at races, writing about the sport, building her own career, all while quietly cheering for me from a distance." A Brazilian journalist called out, "Emma, why didn't you contact Lewis directly? Why the secret account?" Emma stepped closer to the microphones. "I was scared," she said honestly. "When Lewis and I broke up, I thought I wasn't strong enough for his world. I thought the media attention, the pressure, the scrutiny would be too much for me." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "So I found a way to still be part of his life, without interfering with it. The at LH44 Forever account let me support him, encourage him, celebrate his victories, without causing any complications for his career." "But you were at the races," another journalist pressed. "You were working as a motorsport journalist. Weren't you tempted to approach him?" "Every single time," Emma admitted. "But I thought staying away was protecting both of us. I thought it was the mature, professional thing to do." A German reporter asked, "Lewis, how did you discover the account?" Lewis smiled slightly. "Pure accident. I was scrolling through Instagram, and something about the writing style caught my attention. The post showed incredible knowledge of racing, deep emotional investment in my career, and personal details that only someone close to me would know." He looked at Emma. "The account was created exactly 1 week after we broke up. The first post said, 'Still believing in magic, still cheering for 44.' Those were Emma's exact words to me the night before our relationship ended." The crowd of journalists was completely silent now, hanging on every word. "When did you realize you still had feelings for Emma?" asked a French reporter. "I never stopped having feelings for Emma," Lewis said simply. "I just thought she had moved on. I thought she was happy without me. Finding out that she had been supporting me, believing in me, loving me for 5 years, it was the most beautiful and heartbreaking discovery of my life." Emma felt tears starting again. "I tried to contact him once," she said. "After Abu Dhabi 2021, I sent a message to his Instagram. I told him I still loved him, that I was sorry for leaving, that there was something I should have told him before we broke up." "What was it you should have told him?" a journalist asked Emma. Looked at Lewis, who nodded encouragingly. This was the moment of truth, the moment when their most private pain would become public knowledge. "I was scared to tell him how much his career meant to me," Emma said. "I was scared that if I stayed in his world, people would think he was getting special treatment from the media. I was scared of being called his distraction or his weakness." She took a shaky breath. "So I turned down a job with Sky Sports F1. I gave up my dream position to protect Lewis's reputation. But I never told him about it. I just said I needed space and left." The hallway erupted in gasps and murmurs. This was bigger than anyone had expected. "You gave up a job with Sky Sports?" the Sky Sports journalist asked, stunned. "They offered me a trackside reporter position in 2019, Emma confirmed. "Following the F1 circus to every race, interviewing drivers, being part of the broadcast team. It was everything I had ever wanted professionally." "Why didn't you tell Lewis about this?" another reporter asked. Emma looked at Lewis, seeing the shock and pain in his eyes. "Because I thought I was protecting him. I thought if I was there, asking him questions on camera, people would say he was getting easy interviews. I thought they would question his achievements." Lewis stepped closer to Emma. "You sacrificed your dream job for me, without even telling me." Emma nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought love meant putting your career first." "Emma," Lewis said softly, "I would never have wanted you to do that. I would never have asked you to give up your dreams for mine." "I know that now," Emma said, "but I was young and scared and I thought I was being noble." Lewis turned to the crowd of journalists. "This is why I love this woman," he said, his voice strong and clear. "For 5 years, she has been the most selfless, supportive, incredible person in my life, and I didn't even know it. She gave up her dream job to protect my reputation. She supported my career from a distance because she thought that's what I needed. She loved me quietly and completely without expecting anything in return. He pulled Emma closer. Emma Chun is not my distraction. She's not my weakness. She's my strength. She's my inspiration. She's the reason I keep fighting, even when I don't. No, she's there cheering for me. The journalists were scribbling notes frantically, but Emma barely noticed them anymore. She was looking at Louis, seeing the love and admiration in his eyes, finally understanding that she had never needed to hide from his world. "What happens now?" a reporter called out. Louis and Emma looked at each other, then back at the crowd. "Now, we figure out how to be together," Louis said. "Really together. No more secrets, no more hiding, no more loving each other from a distance." Emma stepped forward to the microphones. "I want everyone to know that Louis had nothing to do with any of my career decisions over the past 5 years. I've built my reputation as a journalist through my own work, my own merit. The @LH44 Forever account was something I did privately in my own time." She looked directly into the cameras. "I'm proud of the journalist I've become. I'm proud of the support I've given Louis. And I'm proud to finally be standing here beside him, telling our real story." A journalist from the back called out, "Emma, are you worried about your professional credibility now that this relationship is public?" Emma considered the question seriously. "I've spent 5 years proving that I can be objective and professional even while having personal feelings about the sport. My editors and colleagues know the quality of my work. I'm not worried about my credibility because I've never let my personal feelings compromise my professional integrity." Louis smiled at her answer. "That's the woman I fell in love with. Professional, ethical, brilliant, and brave enough to tell the truth even when it's difficult." Sarah approached them, checking her watch. "We should probably wrap this up. The main media are demanding official statements, and social media is exploding." "One more question," Louis said to the crowd. A young Brazilian journalist raised her hand. "What do you want people to know about your love story?" Emma and Louis looked at each other. Then Emma answered, "I want people to know that love isn't always loud and public. Sometimes love is quiet support, believing in someone even when they don't know you're there, cheering for their dreams even when you're not part of them." Louis nodded. "And I want people to know that sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones where people find their way back to each other. Emma and I lost 5 years because we were both afraid, but we're not afraid anymore." He looked directly into the main camera. "To everyone who follows the @LH44 Forever account, to everyone who believed in our story before we even knew it was a story, thank you. You kept faith in something beautiful, and now it's real." As they walked away from the crowd of journalists, Emma realized that her phone was buzzing nonstop with notifications. The @LH44 Forever account had gained over 100,000 new followers. In the past hour, comments were pouring in from around the world. "I can't believe this is real. 5 years of secret love? This is incredible. Emma, you're living every F1 fan's dream. This is the most beautiful love story in sports." Emma showed Louis her phone. "Look at this response. People are celebrating our story." Louis grinned. Maybe the world was ready for a love story after all. But as they reached Louis's car, Emma realized there was still one more thing she needed to tell him. Something she had been carrying alone for 5 years. Something that would explain why she had really stayed away for so long. "Louis," she said quietly, "there's something else. Something I haven't told you yet. The real reason I've been so dedicated to following your career. The reason I never missed a race. The reason I've never been able to move on." Louis stopped walking and looked at her seriously. "What is it?" Emma took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to say would change everything between them forever. "Louis, we need to go somewhere private first," Emma said, looking around at the journalists still lingering nearby. "This isn't something I can tell you here." Louis studied her face, seeing the seriousness in her eyes. "Okay, my hotel is 5 minutes away. We can talk there." They drove in silence through the Sao Paulo traffic, both lost in their own thoughts. Emma stared out the window at the city she had called home for the past 5 years. Everything looked different now. The buildings, the streets, the sky. All of it felt changed by what had just happened at the hotel. Louis led Emma to his suite on the top floor. The room was elegant and quiet, with floor-to-ceiling windows showing the sprawling city below. Emma had been in hotel rooms like this with Louis before, years ago, when they were together. But this felt different. They were different people now. Can I get you something to drink? Louis asked. Water? Coffee? Water, please, Emma said, sitting on the edge of the sofa. Her hands were shaking again. Louis brought her a glass and sat down across from her, giving her space. Take your time, he said gently. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Emma took a sip of water, trying to calm her nerves. For 5 years, she had carried this secret alone. No one else knew. Not her friends, not her family, not even Miles when he called her. She had buried it so deep that sometimes she almost forgot it was there, but it was always there. In every race she watched, every article she wrote, every post she made on the @LH44Forever account. It was the real reason she had never been able to move on. When we broke up in March 2019, Emma began slowly. I told you I needed space to figure out my career. I told you I wasn't ready for the pressure of being in your world. All of that was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Louis leaned forward slightly, listening carefully. The night before we had that big fight, Emma continued, I was going to tell you something important, something that would have changed everything. But then we argued about my career, about the Sky Sports job I hadn't told you about how to balance our relationship with your racing schedule. And I lost my courage. Emma's voice started to break. I had been carrying this news for 3 weeks, Louis. 3 weeks of wanting to tell you, planning how to tell you, imagining your reaction. What news? Louis asked softly. Emma closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 5 years of silence pressing down on her. I was pregnant, she said, the words coming out in a whisper. For 3 weeks in February and March 2019, I was pregnant with our baby. Louis went completely still. The glass of water in his hand froze halfway to his lips. The color drained from his face. Pregnant, he repeated, his voice barely audible. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face now. I found out 2 days before the Australian Grand Prix. I was planning to tell you after the race, when we had some quiet time together. But then you were so focused on the season starting, and I didn't want to distract you. Emma, Louis said, setting down his glass with shaking hands. What happened? Where's our baby? Emma's voice broke completely. I lost the baby 2 days after we broke up. The stress, the heartbreak, the fear of being alone, my body couldn't handle it. I was in the hospital while you were in Bahrain for the second race. Louis stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair. He walked to the window, then back to Emma, then to the window again. Emma could see he was trying to process what she had just told him. You were pregnant with our child, Louis said, his voice filled with pain. And you went through losing the baby alone. While I was racing, I didn't know how to tell you, Emma said through her tears. You had just started the season. The team needed you focused. And after we broke up so badly, I thought, maybe it was a sign that we weren't meant to be together. Louis sat back down, but this time he sat next to Emma on the sofa. Emma, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me what happened? Because I thought you wouldn't care, Emma said. Honestly, we had just broken up. You were angry with me for not telling you about the job offer. I thought if I called you and said I was pregnant, you would think I was trying to manipulate you into staying with me. And after you lost the baby, Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. After I lost the baby, I thought there was no point in telling you. The pregnancy was over. We were over. Telling you would just cause more pain for both of us. Louis reached for Emma's hands, holding them gently. Emma, I would have wanted to know. I would have wanted to be there for you. Pregnant or not, baby or no baby. I would have wanted to support you through that. I know that now, Emma said, but I was 24 years old and scared and grieving. I made the decision I thought was best at the time. Louis was quiet for a long moment, staring down at their joined hands. Is this why you've been following my career so closely? Why you never missed a race? Emma nodded. I felt like I owed it to the future we almost had. Every race I watched, every victory I celebrated, every difficult moment I supported you through, I was loving you for both of us. For me and for the baby we lost. That's why you could never move on, Louis said. Understanding now, how could I move on? Emma asked. Every time I tried to date someone else, every time I thought about starting a new relationship, I would think about what we lost. I would think about the family we almost were. No one else could compete with that. Louis pulled Emma closer, wrapping his arms around her. I'm so sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry you went through that alone. I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. Emma cried against his shoulder, 5 years of grief finally pouring out. I wanted to tell you so many times. When you won races, when you struggled with difficult seasons, when you looked sad in interviews. I wanted to call you and say, remember when we almost had a baby? Remember when we almost had everything? Why are you telling me now? Louis asked gently. Emma pulled back to look at him. Because I can't build a future with you while carrying the secrets of our past. Because you deserve to know the truth about why I left, why I stayed away, why I could never stop loving you. She wiped her eyes again. And because our baby deserved to be acknowledged, even if just between us. For 5 years, I've been the only person who remembered that our child existed, even for just a few weeks. It felt wrong to keep that memory all to myself. Louis was crying now too. What would we have named the baby? Emma smiled through her tears. I used to think about that. If it was a girl, maybe Luna, because you always said you loved watching the moon over Monaco. If it was a boy, maybe Gabriel, because it means God's messenger, and the baby would have been a message that we were meant to be together. Luna Hamilton, Louis said softly. Gabriel Hamilton. I know it's silly to think about names for a baby who was never born, Emma said. It's not silly, Louis said firmly. That baby was real. That pregnancy was real. The love that created that life was real. None of that was silly. They sat together quietly for a while, both processing the weight of what had been shared. Outside, the hotel windows, Sao Paulo was getting dark. Somewhere in the city, the media was still talking about their story, but it felt like a different world. Emma, Louis said finally, I need you to know something. If you had told me about the pregnancy when it happened, I would have asked you to marry me immediately. Emma looked at him in surprise. I was already thinking about proposing. Louis continued. I had been looking at rings, planning how to ask you. Finding out you were pregnant would have just made me more certain that I wanted to spend my life with you. Really? Emma asked. Really, Louis said. And if I had known about the miscarriage, I would have flown home immediately. I would have held you while you grieved. I would have grieved with you. I would have made sure you knew that losing our baby didn't change how much I loved you. Emma felt fresh tears starting. I was so stupid to handle it alone. You weren't stupid, Louis said. You were scared and hurt and trying to protect everyone else, even when you needed protection yourself. But Emma, promise me something. What? Promise me that we'll never keep secrets like this from each other again. Promise me that whatever happens in our future, we'll face it together. Emma nodded. I promise. No more secrets. No more protecting each other by staying apart. Louis kissed her forehead gently. I love you, Emma. All of you. The woman you were 5 years ago, the woman you are now, the mother you almost were. I love all of it. I love you too, Emma said. I'm sorry it took me so long to tell you the truth. Louis held her close as the sun set over Sao Paulo. They had finally shared their deepest secret, their most painful loss. But somehow, Emma felt lighter than she had in years. The weight of carrying that grief alone was finally gone. What happens now? Emma asked. Louis was quiet for a moment, then said, Now we start over. Not from where we left off 5 years ago, but from where we are now. Two people who have lived through loss and separation and found their way back to each other. Emma smiled against his chest. I'd like that. But first, Louis said, I think we need to figure out how to handle the media storm that's probably building outside this hotel. As if on cue, Louis's phone started buzzing with calls and messages. Emma's phone was doing the same thing. Are you ready for this? Louis asked. Really ready? Because once we walk out of this room together, there's no going back to hiding. Emma took a deep breath, thinking about everything that had brought them to this moment. 5 years of secret love, sacrifice, loss, and longing. 5 years of being apart when they should have been together. I'm ready, she said. I'm ready to stop hiding. I'm ready to be with you, publicly and proudly. I'm ready for whatever comes next, as long as we face it together. Louis smiled and kissed her softly. Then let's go show the world what real love looks like. But before they could leave the hotel room, Louis's phone rang. It was Sarah, his press officer, and she sounded frantic. Louis, where are you? The media situation is getting out of control. There are reporters camped outside your hotel, Emma's apartment building, even at the airport. Every major news outlet wants an exclusive interview. Louis put the phone on speaker so Emma could hear. What are they saying? Everything, Sarah said. Some outlets are calling it the greatest love story in F1 history. Others are questioning Emma's professional ethics. There are rumors flying about why you really broke up 5 years ago, speculation about secret relationships, theories about everything. Emma felt her stomach drop. What kind of speculation? Some journalists are suggesting that you two have been secretly together this whole time, Sarah explained. Others think this is a publicity stunt for Lewis's move to Ferrari. A few are questioning whether Emma's motorsport journalism has been compromised by her feelings. Emma looked at Lewis with panic in her eyes. They're going to destroy my career. No, they're not, Lewis said firmly. Because we're going to tell them the truth. All of it. Lewis, Sarah said through the phone. I need to advise against any more public statements without proper planning. This story is too big now. We need crisis management, media strategy. Sarah, Lewis interrupted. This isn't a crisis. This is the truth. And I'm not going to let anyone twist our story into something it's not. Emma stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see news vans lining the street. Photographers with long lenses were positioned across from the hotel. Her quiet life was officially over. What if we tell them about the baby? Emma asked quietly. Lewis and Sarah both went silent. Emma, Sarah said carefully, that's extremely personal information. Are you sure you want that to become public? Emma turned back to Lewis. I've been thinking about it since we talked. All these journalists are making up theories about why we broke up, why I stayed away, why I followed your career. What if we just told them the real reason? That's a big decision, Lewis said. Once that information is out there, it's out there forever. Our most private pain becomes public knowledge. Emma nodded. I know. But Lewis, I'm tired of people not understanding our story. I'm tired of letting others guess about our motivations. If we're going to be public about our love, shouldn't we be honest about our loss too? Lewis considered this. It would certainly explain everything. Why you left, why you couldn't move on, why you've been so dedicated to supporting my career. And it would stop the speculation about my professional integrity, Emma added. People would understand that this wasn't about getting special access or compromising my journalism. It was about grief and love and trying to honor something we lost. Sarah's voice came through the phone again. If you're seriously considering this, we need to do it right. Controlled environment, proper interview, not another hallway press conference. What do you suggest? Lewis asked. One major interview. Prime time. Someone respected, someone who will handle the story with sensitivity. Maybe Anderson Cooper, or someone from BBC, or even someone from Sky Sports F1 since that's relevant to your story. Emma had an idea. What about David Coulthard? He's a former F1 driver. He understands the sport, and he's known for thoughtful interviews. Lewis nodded. David would be perfect. He knew us when we were together before. He'd understand the context. I can reach out to his team, Sarah said. But are you both absolutely certain about this? There's no taking it back once it's public. Emma and Lewis looked at each other. 5 years of secrets, 5 years of misunderstanding, 5 years of loving each other from a distance. They had already revealed so much. Why not reveal it all? We're certain, Emma said. Completely certain, Lewis agreed. Okay, Sarah said. Give me 2 hours. I'll set something up for tonight if possible. But in the meantime, you both need to stay in that hotel room. The media circus outside is getting bigger by the hour. After they hung up, Emma and Lewis sat together on the sofa, both processing what they had just committed to do. Are you scared? Emma asked. Terrified, Lewis admitted, but also relieved. I'm tired of hiding parts of my life from the world. I'm tired of letting people guess about who I am and what matters to me. Emma's phone buzzed with a notification from the @LH44Forever account. She had gained another 50,000 followers in the past 2 hours. The comments were pouring in faster than she could read them. Look at this, she said, showing Lewis her phone. People are sharing their own stories about secret love, about supporting someone from a distance, about losing pregnancies. Lewis read some of the comments. Thank you for showing that love doesn't always look the same. My heart breaks for what you went through alone. This gives me hope that my ex and I might find our way back to each other. Our story is giving people hope, Emma said softly. And courage, Lewis added, reading more comments. If Emma can be brave enough to tell the truth, so can I. Time to stop hiding my feelings. Love is worth fighting for. Emma scrolled through more responses. Thousands of people from around the world were sharing their own experiences with love, loss, separation, and reunion. Their story had touched something universal. Maybe this is why everything happened the way it did, Emma said thoughtfully. Maybe we needed to go through 5 years of separation so we could understand how precious love really is. Louis kissed her hand. Maybe our story can help other people who are struggling with the same fears we had. 2 hours later, Sarah called. Back with news. I got you the interview. David Coulthard agreed to do it tonight. BBC is giving you a full hour, prime time. They're sending a crew to the hotel conference room downstairs. Tonight, Emma asked nervously. Strike while the iron is hot, Sarah explained. The story is everywhere right now. Better to control the narrative while people are paying attention than to wait and let others define your story for you. Emma looked at Louis. Are you ready for this? Are you? Louis asked back. Emma thought about the past 24 hours. Yesterday, she had been a quiet freelance journalist living in Sao Paulo, loving Louis from a distance. Today, she was about to tell the world about the most painful experience of her life, on live television, sitting next to the man she had never stopped loving. I'm ready, she said. Let's tell our story properly. That evening, Emma and Louis sat across from David Coulthard in the hotel's conference room. Professional lighting had been set up, cameras were positioned perfectly, and the atmosphere was much calmer than the chaos earlier in the day. Before we start, David said, I want you both to know that we can pause anytime, edit anything you're not comfortable with, and take this at whatever pace feels right. Emma and Louis nodded. They had spent the afternoon preparing, talking through what they wanted to share and how they wanted to share it. Ready? David asked. Ready, they said together. The cameras started rolling, and David began with a simple question. Louis, Emma, the world discovered your story today in a very public way. But there's clearly much more to this than what happened in that press conference room. Can you take us back to the beginning? Louis and Emma looked at each other. Then Emma spoke first. The beginning is really 5 years ago, she said. When we broke up in March 2019, the world thought it was because I wasn't ready for the pressure of Louis's career. But the truth is much more complicated than that. More complicated how? David asked gently. Emma took a deep breath. I was pregnant. For 3 weeks in early 2019, Louis and I were going to have a baby together. But we never got the chance to celebrate that news because I lost the pregnancy 2 days after we broke up. David's expression showed genuine surprise and sympathy. Emma, I'm so sorry for your loss. Louis, did you know about the pregnancy? No, Louis said, his voice thick with emotion. Emma was planning to tell me after the Australian Grand Prix, but we had a fight about her career and she never got the chance. I only learned about it today, 5 years later. That must have been incredibly difficult to carry alone, David said to Emma. It was, Emma admitted. But I thought I was protecting Louis. I thought if I told him about the pregnancy after we broke up, he would think I was trying to manipulate him into staying with me. And after I lost the baby, I thought there was no point in causing him more pain. Is this why you started the @LH44 Forever account? David asked. Emma nodded. I felt like I owed it to the future we almost had. Every race I watched, every post I made supporting Louis, I was loving him for both of us, for me and for the baby we lost. Louis reached for Emma's hand. What Emma is saying is that for 5 years, she's been honoring our child by never giving up on love. She's been showing me and the world what unconditional support looks like. Louis, how does it feel to learn all of this now? David asked. Heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time, Louis said honestly. Heartbreaking because Emma went through the worst experience of her life alone, when she should have had my support. Beautiful because it shows me the depth of her love, the strength of her character, the incredible woman she's become. David leaned forward slightly. Emma, you've built a successful career as a motorsport journalist while carrying these feelings. How did you maintain your professional integrity? By working twice as hard as anyone else, Emma said firmly. I knew that if my feelings for Louis ever became public, people would question my objectivity. So I made sure my work was beyond reproach. I never wrote personal articles about Louis. I never sought special access. I treated him exactly like any other driver in my professional capacity. And the @LH44 Forever account was completely separate. Completely, Emma confirmed. I ran it in my personal time, under a pseudonym, as my own private way of processing my feelings. I never used my journalism credentials to get information for the account. Lewis, David said, what do you want people to understand about Emma's story? Lewis looked directly into the camera. I want people to understand that Emma Chun is the strongest, most ethical, most loving person I know. She sacrificed her dream job to protect my reputation. She supported my career from a distance because she thought that's what I needed. She carried the grief of losing our child alone because she thought that would cause me less pain. His voice grew stronger. Emma didn't do any of this for attention or personal gain. She did it because she loved me completely and selflessly. And I want the world to know that I love her the same way. David smiled. What's next for you both? Emma and Lewis looked at each other and smiled. Now we stop hiding, Emma said. We stop protecting each other by staying apart. We start building the life we should have had 5 years ago. Together, Lewis added. Finally, completely together. As the interview ended, Emma felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. Their story was out there now, all of it. The love, the loss, the separation, the reunion. No more secrets, no more speculation, no more misunderstanding. The world finally knew the truth about Lewis Hamilton and Emma Chun. And the truth was beautiful. The BBC interview aired at 8 p.m. London time, which meant it was 11 p.m. in Sao Paulo, when Emma and Lewis watched it together in his hotel room. As the credits rolled, both of their phones exploded with notifications. The interview was already being shared millions of times across every social media platform. Emma scrolled through her Twitter feed, reading the responses. Most beautiful love story I've ever heard. This made me cry for an hour. True love really does exist. Their baby is watching from heaven, so proud of his parents. Look at this, Lewis said, showing Emma his phone. The @LH44Forever account has gained 2 million followers since the interview started. 2 million people in 3 hours. Emma shook her head in amazement. I started that account as my private way to process grief. Now it's connecting millions of people around the world. Lewis's team manager called just after midnight. Lewis, I've never seen anything like this response. The interview has been viewed 50 million times already. Netflix is calling about a documentary. Publishers want book deals. This is bigger than any championship celebration. What about negative reactions? Lewis asked. There's always criticism. Surprisingly little, his manager said. Some people are questioning the timing with your Ferrari move, but most of the response is overwhelmingly positive. People are calling you both heroes for sharing something so personal. After the call, Emma walked to the hotel window and looked out at Sao Paulo. The news vans were still there, but somehow they seemed less threatening now. The story was out. The truth was public. There was nothing left to hide. Emma, Lewis said softly, joining her at the window. I need to ask you something important. What is it? Lewis turned to face her fully. I know we just found each other again. I know we have a lot to figure out. But I need you to know what I'm thinking about our future. Emma's heart started beating faster. Okay, I don't want to wait anymore, Lewis said. We've lost 5 years already. I don't want to lose another day, another hour, another minute, pretending we're not meant to be together. He took her hands in his. I know this is fast. I know it's crazy. But Emma, I want to marry you. Emma stared at him, completely shocked. Lewis, I'm not asking you to say yes right now, Lewis said quickly. I'm not even officially proposing yet. I'm just telling you what's in my heart. I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you. I want to honor the love we've shared and the child we lost by creating something beautiful together. Emma felt tears starting in her eyes again. Lewis, we just went public with our relationship 12 hours ago. I know, and I know what people will say. They'll say it's too fast, too crazy, too much drama for one weekend. But Emma, I've been in love with you for 5 years. You've been in love with me for 5 years. How is that too fast? Emma walked back to the sofa and sat down heavily. It's not about time. It's about everything else. Your career, my career, the media attention, the pressure. 5 years ago, we broke up because we couldn't handle those things. What makes you think we can handle them now? Lewis sat beside her. Because we're different people now. You've proven you can maintain your professional integrity while having personal feelings. I've learned that hiding from love doesn't protect anyone. We're stronger now, individually and together. But Lewis, your life is about to change completely. You're moving to Ferrari, which is huge pressure. You'll be dealing with new teammates, new engineers, new expectations. Are you sure you want to add relationship pressure on top of that? Lewis smiled. Emma, having you in my life doesn't add pressure. It removes pressure. For 5 years, I've been racing with half my heart because the other half was missing. When I thought you had moved on, when I thought you didn't care about my career anymore, racing felt empty sometimes. He took her hands again. But today, when I was driving that race, knowing you were watching, knowing you still believed in me, I felt complete for the first time in years. Having you back doesn't complicate my racing. It makes everything else make sense. Emma was quiet for a long moment, thinking about everything that had happened. This morning, she had woken up as a freelance journalist planning to cover another race weekend. Tonight, she was sitting in a hotel room discussing marriage with the most famous racing driver in the world. What would our life look like? Emma asked. I mean, practically, where would we live? How would we handle the media attention? What about my career? Those are all good questions, Lewis said. And I don't have all the answers yet. But I have some ideas. He shifted to face her more directly. For living arrangements, we could split time between Monaco and Sao Paulo. I know you love Brazil, and I love seeing you in the place that makes you happy. For your career, you could continue as a motorsport journalist, but maybe expand into other areas too. Documentary work, book writing, whatever interests you. And the media attention, we handle it together, Lewis said simply. We set boundaries, we protect our private time, but we don't hide from who we are. Today proved that people respond to honesty. If we're real with them, they'll respect us. Emma stood up and walked around the room, processing everything. Lewis, what you're talking about isn't just marriage. It's a complete life change for both of us. I know, and I'm scared too. But Emma, I've spent 5 years wondering what if. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering the same thing. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Miles. Watch the interview. Crying like a baby. You two are meant to be together. Don't overthink this. She showed Lewis the message, and he laughed. Miles always did give good advice. He called me 6 months ago, Emma said. Did you know that? He was checking on me, asking how I was doing. He told me you still kept our photo from Silverstone 2018. You kept things too, Lewis said. The bracelet I gave you. You were wearing it during the press conference today. Emma looked down at her wrist, surprised. She had been wearing the small silver bracelet so long she had forgotten it was there. I never took it off. Even when I was angry at you, even when I thought you had ignored my message, I couldn't take it off. Because you never stopped hoping, Lewis said. Because I never stopped loving you, Emma corrected. Lewis stood up and walked to his suitcase. He pulled out a small box and brought it back to Emma. Lewis, what is that? Emma asked nervously. It's not what you think, Lewis said quickly. I mean, it is a ring, but it's not an engagement ring. It's something else. He opened the box to reveal a simple gold ring with a small inscription inside. Emma squinted to read it. Luna and Gabriel. Emma's breath caught. Lewis, I had it made. This afternoon, Lewis said, while you were getting ready for the interview. I called a jeweler I know in the city and asked them to rush this. It's a promise ring, Emma. A promise to honor our children, to honor our love, and to never let fear keep us apart again. Emma started crying as Lewis slipped the ring onto her right hand. I can't believe you did this. I wanted you to know that everything we've been through matters. The love, the loss, the separation, the reunion, all of it brought us to this moment. And I never want to forget any of it. Emma looked at the ring, then at Lewis. This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me. So what do you say? Lewis asked. Not to marriage, not yet. But to trying again? To building something new together? To being brave enough to choose love over fear? Emma thought about the 5 years she had spent loving Lewis from a distance. She thought about the baby they had lost, the dreams they had buried, the future they had been too scared to fight for. She thought about the woman she had become, stronger, more confident, more sure of what she wanted. And what she wanted was Lewis. She wanted the life they should have had. She wanted to stop hiding and start living. Yes, Emma said, throwing her arms around Lewis's neck. Yes to all of it. Yes to trying again. Yes to being brave. Yes to choosing love. Lewis spun her around the hotel room, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. But, Emma said when he put her down, I have one condition. Anything, Lewis said. When you do officially propose, Emma said with a smile, it better not be in front of cameras. I want that moment to be just ours. Louis grinned and kissed her softly. Deal. Our next private moment will be the most important one of our lives. As they held each other in the quiet hotel room, Emma realized that sometimes the best love stories are the ones where people find their way back to each other. Sometimes love means waiting, supporting from a distance, believing in someone even when they don't know you're there. But sometimes love also means being brave enough to step into the light together. Outside the hotel, Sao Paulo was settling into the late-night hours. But inside room 2012, Lewis Hamilton and Emma Chun were just beginning their new life together. They stayed awake until sunrise, talking about everything they had missed in 5 years. Emma told Lewis about her first article published in a major Brazilian magazine, about the time she had to interview Max Verstappen while knowing she was in love with his biggest rival, about the lonely nights when she almost deleted the @LH44 forever account but couldn't bring herself to do it. Lewis told Emma about the races where he had felt her absence the most, about the victories that felt empty without her there to celebrate, about the difficult moments when he had wondered if he would ever feel complete again. As the sun came up over Sao Paulo, they finally fell asleep in each other's arms. 6 months later, the Monaco Grand Prix was always special, but this year it felt magical. Emma stood in the Ferrari garage, wearing her press credentials and a small smile as she watched Lewis prepare for his home race. It had taken months of careful planning and discussions with race organizers, but they had found a way for Emma to continue her journalism career while being part of Lewis's world. She now worked as a senior correspondent for a major international motorsport publication, covering not just Formula One, but also writing feature stories about the human side of racing. Her article about driver mental health had won a prestigious journalism award. Her book about the 5-year journey of the @LH44 Forever account was becoming a bestseller. Emma, Lewis called from across the garage, "Come here for a second." Emma walked over, trying to maintain her professional composure even though her heart raced every time she saw him in his Ferrari racing suit. "What's up?" she asked. "I wanted you to see this," Lewis said, showing her his helmet for the Monaco race. Along with his usual designs, there was a small inscription that only someone standing very close could read, "For Luna and Gabriel, still believing in magic." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Lewis, they're part of our story," Lewis said softly. "They should be part of our victories too." Emma squeezed his hand quickly, then stepped back to maintain her professional distance. Other journalists were watching, and they had both worked hard to prove that their relationship didn't compromise Emma's objectivity. The race was incredible. Lewis started from pole position and drove brilliantly, fighting off challenges from his competitors to win his home Grand Prix for the second time in his career. As he crossed the finish line, Emma was there in the media section, taking photos and notes like any other journalist. But when the cameras weren't on her, she was crying tears of joy. After the post-race interviews and celebrations, Lewis found Emma in the media center. Most of the other journalists had left, and they finally had a moment alone. "Congratulations," Emma said officially. "Great drive today." Lewis grinned. "Thank you, Ms. Chun. Very professional of you." "I try," Emma said, but she was smiling too. "Walk with me?" Lewis asked. They left the media center and walked toward the harbor. Monaco was celebrating Lewis's victory, with fans cheering and fireworks beginning to light up the sky. But Lewis led Emma away from the crowds, toward a quiet spot overlooking the Mediterranean. "Emma," Lewis said, stopping at a railing with a perfect view of the sunset over the water. "Do you remember what you said to me the night before we broke up 5 years ago?" "I said a lot of things that night," Emma replied. "You said you would always believe in magic," Lewis said. "You said you would always be cheering for 44. Emma smiled. "I kept that promise, didn't I?" "You did," Lewis said. "And now I want to make you a promise." Lewis reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Emma's heart stopped. "Emma Chun," Lewis said, getting down on one knee right there overlooking Monaco Harbor. "You have been my inspiration for 5 years, even when I didn't know it. You have shown me what real love looks like. Patient, supportive, selfless, and brave." Emma started crying as Lewis opened the box to reveal a beautiful ring. "You honored our lost children by never giving up on love. You honored my career by supporting it even when it meant sacrificing your own dreams. You honored our relationship by keeping faith when I had lost faith in everything. Louis looked up at her with tears in his eyes. I don't want to spend another day without you as my partner in everything. Will you marry me? Emma looked down at Louis, this incredible man who had just won the Monaco Grand Prix and chosen to spend the most important moment of his victory proposing to her. Behind them, the city was celebrating his achievement, but here in this quiet moment, they were celebrating something even more important. Yes? Emma said, pulling Louis to his feet. Yes, of course, yes. Louis slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. As he kissed her, fireworks exploded over Monaco Harbor, but Emma barely noticed them. She was too busy kissing the man she had never stopped loving. I have something for you too, Emma said when they finally broke apart. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small wrapped box. I was planning to give this to you after the race anyway, but this seems like the perfect moment. Louis unwrapped the box to find a watch with an inscription on the back. To my champion, past, present, and future. Love, Emma. It's beautiful, Louis said, fastening it onto his wrist. But you didn't have to. Yes, I did, Emma interrupted. Because I wanted you to have something that shows how proud I am of you. Not just for the racing, but for the man you are. For choosing love over fear. For being brave enough to fight for us. They stood together overlooking Monaco, both wearing symbols of their commitment to each other. In the distance, the celebration of Louis's race victory continued, but their private celebration was just beginning. What happens now? Emma asked. Now we plan a wedding, Louis said, grinning. Now we figure out how to merge our lives completely. Now we start the family we always wanted. Emma's breath caught. Louis, I know it's early to talk about that, Louis said quickly. But Emma, I want to have children with you. I want to honor Luna and Gabriel by creating new life, new love, new hope. Emma kissed him again, tasting the salt from her own happy tears. I want that too. All of it. As they walked back toward the paddock, Emma realized that the @LH44 Forever account would need a new name soon. Maybe at Team Hamilton, or at Louis and Emma, or maybe just at Forever. Because that's what this felt like, forever. Her phone buzzed with a notification. The account now had over 10 million followers, and the latest post about Louis's Monaco victory had been shared by celebrities, athletes, and fans around the world. Their love story had inspired millions of people to believe in second chances, in fighting for love, in the magic that happens when two people refuse to give up on each other. But more importantly, their love story had led them back to each other. 1 year later, Emma Hamilton stood in the Ferrari garage at the Brazilian Grand Prix, watching her husband prepare for the race at Interlagos. She was 4 months pregnant with their first child, and Louis insisted on kissing her belly for good luck before every race. How are you feeling? Louis asked, placing his hands gently on her growing bump. Perfect, Emma said honestly. Nervous for your race, excited about the baby, grateful for everything. Me too, Louis said. All of it. The Brazilian fans had embraced Emma completely, calling her their F1 princess and celebrating her pregnancy almost as much as Louis's race victories. The @LH44 Forever account had become a family account, documenting their journey from secret love to marriage to expecting parents. Louis won the Brazilian Grand Prix that day, his first victory at Interlagos as Emma's husband. As he celebrated on the podium, he pointed to Emma in the garage, then placed his hands over his heart and pointed to the sky, a gesture for Luna and Gabriel, who would always be part of their story. That night, as they celebrated with friends and family, Emma felt the baby kick for the first time. Louis was giving a speech about the victory when Emma grabbed his hand and placed it on her belly. Did you feel that? Emma whispered that Louis's eyes went wide as he felt their child moving. He stopped his speech mid-sentence and announced to the room, everyone, the baby just kicked for the first time. The entire room erupted in cheers. Miles was crying. Sarah was taking pictures. Even the toughest racing journalists in the room were wiping their eyes. Later, when they were finally alone in their hotel room, Emma and Louis lay in bed with Louis's hand on her belly, waiting for more kicks. What should we name this one? Louis asked softly. I've been thinking about that, Emma said. If it's a girl, maybe Sophia, which means wisdom. If it's a boy, maybe Leo, which means brave. Sophia Hamilton, Lewis said, trying it out. Leo Hamilton. They sound perfect, Emma said. They sound like the future. Lewis agreed. As Emma drifted off to sleep, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. 5 years of loving from a distance, months of learning to love up close, and now a lifetime of loving together stretching ahead of them. The girl who had started at age 44 forever as a way to process grief had become a woman, building a family with the man she had never stopped believing in. The driver who had thought he was racing alone had discovered he had been supported by love all along. Their story had broken the internet, but more importantly, it had healed 2 hearts and created something beautiful from the pieces. Emma Hamilton fell asleep with her husband's hand on their growing child, knowing that sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones where people find their way back to each other, stronger and braver than before. And in the morning, she would wake up ready to face whatever came next, knowing that she would never have to face it alone again. That was the end of this incredible love story between Lewis Hamilton and Emma Chun. A tale of secret support, lost love found again, and the courage to choose happiness over fear. Where are you listening from today? Drop your location in the comments below. We love hearing from our global audience. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more amazing, emotionally engaging stories like this one. Your support means everything to us and helps us create more content that celebrates love, resilience, and the power of never giving up. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. Stories like Lewis and Emma's remind us all that real love is worth fighting for, and sometimes the most beautiful endings come after the most difficult journeys. Let's spread kindness and awareness together, one story at a time. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next video with another incredible story that will move your heart.